Hello, hello. Welcome back to eCHO. My name is Nicholas Lane, and as you all may remember me from episode 45, which I did with Duffy to talk about KubeCon. Like KubeCon was coming up at the time, and we did a pre-show. So Duffy, he wasn't able to join us, for this week because he's been feeling a little bit under the weather. But I think we'll have a really great show. Duffy wasn't prepared to join us, I should say. And like I said, we'll have a really good show. Joining me for this episode is our very good friend, Bill Mulligan. Hey, Bill, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing really well. I'm doing very well. I'm actually rather excited to talk about this episode because KubeCon is such a fun time, and I had a lot of fun kind of watching from the side, seeing like all the things that were going on at KubeCon. Bill, you were actually there, right?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, first of all, I guess after 2 years, finally, walking around, doing the hallway track, seeing everybody, chatting with people. I think one of my favorite part was you'd be sitting in the hall, just like talking to someone, and you just like see all these people from Twitter just like walking past you, and then it's like an old friend like comes and like joins the circle, and you just like keep on talking. It was just awesome.
Oh man, that's really great. That's awesome. So we have a great show. We're going to be talking about some of the stuff that happened at KubeCon. Also, as always, the eCHO HackMD, the notes are live. So if there's anything that you wanted to you can see what we're going to be talking about. There's a few links in there that we'll be going over. But also, if you wanted to add anything, feel free to, as always. Now, I got to admit to something. I'm actually a little bit of a little stinker. I'm a liar because we actually have a special guest, someone who was able to join us. I'm very excited to say, welcome to the stream, Duffy. Hey, Duffy.
Hello.
Yes, I know. A little bit of a turnaround on you. But yeah, so Duffy, thank you so much for joining us.
I decided to crash at the last minute. So I was definitely thinking I would be way more jet lagged and worn out than I am. And I'm actually feeling a lot better. So I'm glad to be joining you and talking about such an incredible event. This year was
awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And yeah, I was so happy when you texted like, hey, can I join? I was like, yeah, that'd be great. The more the merrier for sure. Cool. So let's go ahead and get kicked off. I'll just show you guys the HackMD really quickly. So let's share the screen. Bam, bam, bam. So as always, we have our HackMD. This is live. We have a link to the video, obviously the stream that you're watching. And then some of the headlines. So, hey, blog alert. There's a new blog on the Isovalent blog. It's around Tetragon. So Tetragon, if you don't know, is something we announced at this KubeCon. Didn't realize I was so scrolled down so far. Tetragon with like the cutest logo in the game, right? This is like super cute. Our artist did an amazing job. But basically, so Tetragon is taking some of the components that we use for Cilium Enterprise for the security and observability parts of Cilium Enterprise. We've open sourced that and have provided this really powerful tool to the community. So we're really excited to announce that and to see, the community driving towards see how they pick it up and what they do with it. Guys, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of it. Like, you've probably seen on previous episodes, been playing with Hubble, which basically shows like an event stream around what's actually happening at the network layer. And with Tetragon, we're doing a very similar thing, but like at a process layer. So you're actually able to see a process do an open or an exec and that sort of stuff. It's just more data about what's actually happening inside of a container. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. This is really awesome. So highly recommend taking a look at this blog. There's a lot of great content in here, a breakdown of how Tetragon works and kind of like the structure of it. And also coming down, there's some more like reading links at the bottom. So check this out. I'm going to be playing with Tetragon quite a bit more myself. So you kind of some of the differences between the enterprise version and the open source version. But yeah, super excited for this. Definitely check out this blog. Some other things that we want to talk about are there's books. We have some books are available for free that were written by some of the people at Isovalent. So security observability with eBPF, written by Jed Salazar, who is now no longer with Isovalent, but was when he wrote this book, as well as Natalia Ivanko, who's a security engineer working for Isovalent. And also, what is eBPF, written by Liz Rice. Also, just want to give a quick shout out, Divine. Yes, the Tetragon logo is super hard. I love it so much. Cool. So let's move on. So we have a big show to talk about. There's a lot of things that happened at KubeCon, and I'm excited to hear about your guys's, how you, or what you took away from KubeCon. So to kick that off, we have a quick slide put together of some of the major events from Cilium and the Isovalent team at KubeCon. So Bill, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Cool. Yeah. Duff, you can comment too, because you were there too. I guess just kind of like, I pulled together some of the photos from the event just so people can kind of get a sense, if you weren't there, like what it was like being in person. I guess maybe first of all, I would say I've been to, I think, like 9 or 10 KubeCons now. This is my first one with like Cilium, and the response and like the excitement around Cilium has been insane. Like every single second at the booth was just like people just like coming by, like, I want to try out Cilium. I'm using Cilium. Tell me about this feature. Tell me about that. It was awesome. Like really, really, really fun. I don't know, Duffy, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I saw that a bit in LA when I was when I went to the LA KubeCon. Although I would say that this is very much a different experience than that one was, because to your point, I do feel like there were a lot more people present. One of the other things I really enjoyed was that, like, you know, in LA, I saw, like I said, I definitely saw a lot of that same kind of energy around people just being really super excited about the project and really super excited about what we're doing. I don't know that I was really expecting the same level of excitement from like an audience that I haven't really interacted too much with, which is like the whole European audience. Like there are tons of people at this convention that I've known for years online through different parts of the community, but I've never actually had a chance to meet in person. But I absolutely did see that, right? Like so many of the folks that I was meeting for the first time were right back in exactly that same space where they were just super, super excited about all the things that we're doing, super excited about the space, and, you know, just, yeah, it was tremendously energizing. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's one of the takeaways from KubeCon for me, not having attended, was just seeing all the energy, at KubeCon, seeing how excited people were to be doing KubeCon again, like live, and being able to like hang out with like friends that they haven't seen for a couple of years. And I know that KubeCon did all that it could to be safe during this particular moment. Shout out, by the way, to Kat Cosgrave for helping raise, visibility into putting, masks as a mandate back on for the CNCF. Really happy that the CNCF listened and, put that back on, and was trying their best to keep people safe.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of a number of people who actually ended up catching COVID from this event, and I would say that, I have thought multiple times over the last week, and what would the outbreak have looked like if we didn't have that in place? Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, real thing.
Yeah, for sure. Really quick shout out to Rio, super surprised with the interest in eBPF, and oh my god, that line for the book signings. That was something else that I totally loved and was excited by, was seeing all the people line up for the books and the book signings and everything. Was like, what was that like in person?
It was nuts. They were so,
yeah.
The line was, it started like the line was about 100 people deep before, actually it was about 20 people deep before Liz. So Liz was the first book signing, and there were already like 20 people there waiting for Liz to show up, right? And then Liz shows up, and then the line's like 100 people, and then it gets down to about 60 people, and then it's like a consistent 60 people coming and going for like 60 people deep for like, I don't know, what, like an hour or something like that? It was
it's crazy.
I immediately went, like, I've helped I've participated in book signings before, and like I was like, okay, we need to actually understand how many books we have, because there's every chance that, like, there's going to be people waiting in line and we're out of books, and that'll be terrible, right? And so like I ended up like working with Cornelia, who was our events coordinator, to understand like how many books we had. We like put aside like we put aside 100 books, and we said if we start touching these 100 books, then I need to go tell the 100 people that after 100 people that's it, right? So yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, Bill, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So just as a frame of reference for people, we had over 500 books at KubeCon, and every single one is gone. Like,
yeah, all of them.
I didn't
Wow.
even, I didn't even get a copy of Liz's book because it got handed out. I was like, somebody else should have this. So yeah, it was pretty insane. So if you haven't yet, you can get your book right now without a line. Just like go to the show notes and you can get both the books like instantly, which is pretty cool. Not signed, but come to next KubeCon and you can get it signed.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
yeah, it was crazy. So the lines in the photos here is the middle left and the one on the bottom right.
Yeah.
Where the two lines, just to get a sense of, I guess, the excitement around that. So.
And then also for top left, like that was like standing room only for one of our talks, right?
Yes. So top left was the Cilium community welcome introduction and deep dive, I think, done by Liz, Thomas, and Laurent from Datadog.
Yeah.
That was a packed session, just to show the excitement. I think the other thing that really surprised me was, I don't think we have a photo on here, but Liz talk about Cilium Service Mesh was on Friday at the end of the day, which is, if you've ever gone to a conference before, that's usually pretty sparsely attended. The room was so packed that they had to start kicking people out for fire safety.
Whoa, that's crazy. That's awesome. So yeah, like one of the takeaways from this KubeCon is definitely the excitement around eBPF for sure. So we have a few more slides. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Oops, I went too far. Here's some more of our pictures. Liz talking, Duffy, love to see it. Yeah, so this was just a very exciting KubeCon for all things eBPF for sure.
Yeah, and like you were saying before, like the hallway track, was back in full effect. I was really, I was definitely enjoying that. That part of it, seeing so many people, and also like I think so this is the first European KubeCon I have been able to attend because I had a talk accepted at the one right as the pandemic was kicking off.
Oh no!
Yeah.
And I was like, I had all booked, I was ready to go, and then I didn't make it to Barcelona the year before, and so I was really sad that I didn't make that. But yeah, even LA, although there were they were supposed to be like 3,000 people there, I would say that 2,000 of those people I was already pretty familiar with. It was great to come face with so many of my friends, but it wasn't. It really didn't have the energy of it really didn't have like the energy of this one. I mean, like I felt like at this KubeCon we did an eBPF day and we had a table out in front of eBPF day, and I had more conversations with people who were not in who were like coming into the ecosystem for the first time, or people who were end users. Like I had more end user conversations with people in that event at eBPF day than I did in the entirety of KubeCon in LA.
Wow!
Right,
wow!
and that was like a pre-show thing, right? That was a day zero
Yeah.
event, and then you go to and then you go inside of KubeCon, and we had 2 booths because Cilium has been donated to the CNCF. It was part of the solutions showcase, so there was actually a Cilium specific booth, and then there was also the isovalent booth, and both of them had people around all the time, like they were split down.
That's really cool. You'll love to hear it. Also, quick shout out to Carlos. Hey, hello, and Sachin. Hello, welcome, everyone. Welcome. Hey, and there's Jed. Hey, buddy, we just talked about your book.
Yep.
So hey, folks, Jed checking from Boulder. This is one of the writers of the security book. Super. Check out the book, and also, try and get it signed if you can find him in Boulder.
Yeah, Jed, if you come to KubeCon North America, I want you to sign.
That's right.
I already got Natalia to sign.
Hey, there you go. Collect them all. Oh, and we got a heart. Love to see it. All right.
You gotta go visit him in Colorado, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, maybe I can just bring my book. I'll actually be there soon. So,
hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he says he'll be there and love to sign. Love to hear it.
Sweet.
Cool.
Let's see what I can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there was a number of talks that Cilium and Isovalent put on, or helped to put on, that were around some of the stuff we're talking about. So Bill, do you want to talk to us around some of these talks?
Yeah, sure. So this is a couple slides about like all the different talks that were happening at KubeCon. So it kicked off at the Cloud Native eBPF Day. This is a talk by IKEA and talking about like the work they're doing with Cilium. I think this is a really interesting use case, mainly because unfortunately, unlike an IKEA instruction set, it doesn't come with all the instructions. They're trying to put all these clusters around all these different stores. So they have some really interesting use cases about running Kubernetes on the edge, and Cilium is, I guess, really helping them with that about load balancing and all that different stuff. So yeah, I don't know, Duffy, are you working with IKEA at all?
I am not in this context,
Okay.
but I did get to meet Karsten. I thought he was an awesome human.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I had a chance to check out this talk. It was really interesting and seeing like all the things that they're working on. I highly recommend taking a look at the video. Cool. And then we also have leveraging Cilium and SRv6 for telco networking from Bell Canada. Yeah,
so I was at the Cloud Native Telco Day, and I feel like Daniel was definitely like mobbed after this talk. Just because I guess telco like networking is kind of one of those things where, you know, they've been doing this for 100 years, going all the way back down to copper wires. So when we talk about legacy, there's a little bit in there. So being able to make changes that actually improve things is actually like quite difficult, and there's a lot of vested interest in not changing things too, and some of the vendor community and things. And so I think I saw I gave the closing remarks there, and there was a lot of excitement around Cilium and eBPF for telco networking. There's even a couple talks around eBPF at Cloud Native Telco Day, which was surprising to me because I guess telcos aren't really known for being that cutting edge. Usually more of the we'll adopt this in 10 years when it's stable type of crowd. And so it was cool to see this, and it's a really interesting use case about I guess bringing more knowledge to the networks too, and including IPv6. So it's quite cool. I can definitely recommend that one too. Though the only thing is at this conference center, the Wi-Fi was not the best. So the demo was a bit, shaky, but it still worked. So
yeah, it was kind of a sort of a self-fulfilling sort of thing. We saw it on the show floor too. It was like when there were people around to actually show something to, then the Wi-Fi, then clearly there were more users of the Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi was terrible. And when there was nobody around, the Wi-Fi was fine, right? It's like,
that's funny. Yeah, that seemed to be a theme with a lot of the talks, was that the Wi-Fi was just getting in everyone's way.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So moving on from that, we have the future of service mesh. Is eBPF a silver lining or bullet?
This was a great panel, and it's actually on YouTube right now. It's already out, and I watched it after the fact again because like most of the time I'm spending my time at a KubeCon like this in the hallway track, or and talking to people at one of the booths or something like that. So I very rarely have any time to actually go to any talks, even those talks of friends, And so, but I watched this one on YouTube, and I think the link in the HackMD already for this.
No, not for this one. But there is actually a link for all of the eBPF Day videos. There's a playlist that's already available on YouTube. When we go back to the HackMD, I can showcase that there's a link to the playlist. So if you're interested in the eBPF Day playlist, check that out for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, this is like a bunch of industry industry champions, like people who have been involved in service mesh from the beginning. And people who, like us, who are, just kind of getting started and really trying to define like how we might improve the space. And yeah, I felt like everybody was really open and really candid, and it was a really good talk. Definitely worth checking out.
Cool. This is one I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but based on that, I'm going to definitely check it out, because it is really cool to see like these champions of this community talking about this topic, right? So like, yeah, I think it's really, really cool. So I'm definitely going to check this one out. Moving on, we have connecting clusters on the edge with a deep dive into Cilium Cluster Mesh with Raymond. He's a member of the solutions architect team. He works with me and Duffy. I haven't had a chance to watch this one yet, I'll be honest. This is one I'm going to check out for sure. Bill, did you have a chance to take a look at this one?
Yeah, so I actually helped Ray put together the CFP for this, which is quite fun. It happened really like last minute. I was like, I think this would be a really good fit for Kubernetes on the Edge Day, because people are kind of like running, those distributed clusters, and you're wondering how you can connect them all together. A lot of people think like, oh, service mesh is the solution for everything, but Cilium has actually had this for a long time where you can mesh multiple clusters together. So this is a lightning talk. I'd recommend checking out just because it's like 15 minutes. So you can get kind of the overview of how cluster mesh can help you bring clusters together too.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, one of the talks that I think it was in the guided tour of Cilium Service Mesh with Liz, which we'll talk about in just a second, she mentions that like Cilium was basically 75% of a service mesh already. And cluster mesh is one of the components that kind of brings it over the edge to being more of like a true service mesh.
Yeah.
And so like this is a great deep dive into like, kind of some of the stuff that's already present in Cilium for sure. So definitely check this one out. Cilium, hey, it's the welcome vision updates from, Thomas, Liz, and Lauren from Datadog. This one must have been great.
Yeah. That was the picture in the packed room that we saw.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a lot of excitement around that. I guess maybe this one's recommended. So if you're new to like the ecosystem or to like Cilium, I'd recommend checking out this one to kind of get, it's like, I guess like the Cilium 101. And if you've been around a little bit longer and want to know where the project's going, it's also interesting too. They dive in like the different features and aspects of each of the projects. So I can definitely recommend this one too.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, definitely gonna check this one out for sure. And then choosing cloud native technologies for the journey of multi-cloud from Adelina from Form 3.
Yeah, so this is, I think, an interesting end user case study where they're looking, it's somebody who's like, okay, we're in a heavily regulated industry. How do we build our tech stack and how do we come to the choices that we did? And so it's her kind of like walking through what they've done at Form 3 to build like a financial services cloud, something that works in a regulated industry and works for the customers and also for the SREs, So this is, if you want to dive into how are other people building their tech stacks today, check out this one.
Awesome. Great. Transparent live migration of services between Kubernetes clusters with Jorg and Adam from Arango DB. I don't know how to say that actually.
I think it's Arango DB.
Arango, okay.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, one of the things that's been a theme at KubeCon ever since I've gone is, oh yeah, multi-cloud. We're definitely going to happen. That's going to happen. And in this talk, they actually do multi-cloud, and it's talking about how you can live migrate between like different clouds, and especially with a persistent workload like a database. This is talking about their managed Arango DB like SaaS offering. And so if you want to understand how they're managing like persistent data at scale in Kubernetes and doing live migrations between multiple clouds, which is a really complex and interesting use case, check out this talk.
Awesome. And then Kubernetes Networking 101. This is one that I have on my list that I didn't get a chance to look at, but this one looks really, really interesting with Randy Abernethy from RX-M LLC.
Yes, they're a training and consultancy company, and they've been in the industry for a long time. Randy helped develop, I think, the CKA, CKAD, and a couple of the other like certifications too. So I guess a really knowledgeable and nice person in the community. And this is a good talk because he's diving into, if you're not aware, I guess Kubernetes networking is a little bit different than traditional networking, where there's basically a flat network. All the pods can talk to all the other pods and local hosts. And so you want to understand a bit about how that works and how like CNIs and service meshes plug into that and how it all kind of, I guess, connects together. This is like the 101 talk for that. So if you're new to Kubernetes or you think Kubernetes networking is kind of crazy, probably check out this one to get kind of the overview of how it works.
Yeah, and by the way, if you think that Kubernetes networking is crazy, you're right. It is. So definitely check this out for sure. Cool. This is a very fun talk. I've seen the proto version of this talk, the better bandwidth management with eBPF with Daniel and Chris from Isovalent. Bill, I'll let you get into that in a second, but this is a really fun talk where they talk about some of like the technology that is now present in the Linux kernel that has better like bandwidth management and how like eBPF can help with that. And they do like a really cool live demo of it for sure. Bill, like any thoughts?
I think this is cool because I guess one thing that people don't know is like Daniel Borkman is actually the maintainer of eBPF in the Linux kernel. So it's quite cool that I guess we get to like work with him on a daily basis. So he actually is, actually developing the upstream code on this. As a little sneak peek, just because KubeCon CFPs are due today, so I saw what Daniel's working on for the future. So with this bandwidth management feature that they added, their next CFP is about building clusters that can handle up to 100 gigabits per second in bandwidth. So
yeah,
that's crazy.
The other thing I really enjoyed about this talk actually was like part of the premise is, so in containerization in general, I would say that one of the things that people who've been in this containerization game for a little while realize is that, these abstractions aren't perfect, right? Like you look at the stuff that we're trying to do with containerization, and frequently there's things in the Linux kernel that haven't really been namespaced in a way that makes that abstraction work well. And one of those things is this bandwidth management piece, right? Like being able to enable BBR as a compression algorithm wasn't really even available in network namespaces prior to the change that this talk is representing, right? So, it's talking about how like we're leveraging eBPF and technologies and actually just making changes in the upstream Linux kernel to be able to even to bring some of the features that have been available in the Linux kernel to applications that run within like the underlying system to things that are namespaced, right? So just moving the ball forward technology-wise from a networking perspective, and it was great. It was good. It was a good talk.
Yeah, I super recommend this talk, like because they talk about the like difference between like some of the technology that's been used in the past, which is technology that's existed for 25 or 30 years or so.
Yeah.
The original like encapsulation algorithm being used by TCP/IP hasn't changed since 1986.
Yeah, exactly.
I was born in 1986.
Yeah.
The fact that it hasn't changed at all since then, right, is crazy. And so like now with this like these changes to like some of the kernel that happened in 2014 and now available in the container space, I think things are going to change very, very swiftly. So highly recommend this talk. Also, Locke told us it was DNS. It felt like DNS. It had to be DNS, but it wasn't DNS. Now that's a twist. This is from Laurent and Elijah at Datadog. I haven't had a chance to watch this one yet, but I love the title because it's always DNS, isn't it?
It's always DNS.
But apparently it wasn't. Bill, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so Laurent, he's a maintainer of Cilium 2, super nice guy. I actually did an interview with him talking about like how he got into open source and Cilium recently. You can check it out on the Cilium blog. But they also did a blog post about this talk too, diving into all the details. So if you don't like watching videos, you can also read the blog post about this too. And it's this, I guess, crazy thing where you're working across like multiple different, you're trying to pull in information from all these different things and figure out what it was. And eventually, I think it boiled down to something about the rate limits in like Amazon, and it would return like it would return the wrong type of error, and that was eventually what it was. They had to like change something around that. So it's I guess an interesting debugging case. So
cool.
definitely check out the talk or the blog.
That's great. And boy, I hate an errant error that sends you in the wrong direction. You're like, I've been working on this for like 10 days. Like, what's going on? Turns out it was like something totally different.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, some of the competitors do some wacky stuff with rate limiting and stuff. Like, even disk IO can be rate limited by a cloud provider, and I remember that being like kind of a silent killer in the etcd days. Like it was super hard to spot.
I'm having like PTSD flashbacks. Duffy, why'd you do that to me? Cool. And hey, that's a familiar face. Composability is a software. Is compounding interest is to finance. Bill, this is your talk.
Yeah, so I'm talking about how composable ecosystems, so things like open source Cilium or eBPF, by making the Linux kernel extendable and programmable, make more business value and create like more valuable ecosystems. So if you want to learn, I guess, like the high level pitch to the C-suite or to your management about why open source is important or where you should buy into open ecosystems, like the one around Cilium, then you should check out this talk.
Awesome. And then I think this is our last one, right? This is a guided tour of Cilium Service Mesh with Liz Rice. This is one of them that I did go and watch. This is a very fun talk. If you like Star Wars themed live demos, then definitely check out this talk. It's really great dive into like, L7 versus, where we're at with Service Mesh right now. Everything's like L3, L4. How do we do L7? Right now, we do L7 observability using Envoy, that sort of thing, but like not sidecar-based Envoy. It's really, really interesting. Do you guys have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, for me, it's like, every time I talk, I really appreciate about Liz the ability to I think it's difficult as we gain more expertise to put our mind back in a place where the thing we're trying to share is approachable from any level, right?
Right.
Because like, what are the assumptions that you operate under? Once you've gained a bunch of expertise, you assume that other people are going to be knowledgeable about a thing in the way that you are knowledgeable about that thing. And Liz is one of those rare speakers that actually, I think, does actually accomplish this, right? Like getting to a place where you can actually present a complicated idea to a wider audience, not just for the people who, have the same vocabulary that you do, but also to people who are just coming to this for the first time. And so this is another great example of that, right? A guided tour of Cilium Service Mesh really gets into like that piece of it and makes it approachable to people who, can't spell service mesh yet. I mean, and that's great. We definitely need more talks, more content like that out there in the world in general. Giving people a place to start is important.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with you. Like listening to this talk, like I'm just very, very impressed with Liz's ability to break down these like complex topics and then just like really showcase them in a very easy to understand way. It's really, really cool. So super recommend this this talk. Going back to the HackMD really quickly. There are some other talks that I watched, and there are links for these in the HackMD. Like I said, we have the eBPF Day YouTube playlist, but one of these is one that we didn't have in our slide, but it's the future of eBPF and cloud native, which was presented by Thomas on during eBPF Day, and so this was a really fun video, quick summary of like where eBPF, like how it got started to today, and then discussion on some of like he showcases some of the cloud native landscape around eBPF, talking about the different observability pieces, service mesh, network, security, the SDKs and all that. So if you're interested in like other projects, like who's doing what in the eBPF landscape, this is a great talk to watch. And then he also talks about some of the future of eBPF. Obviously, that's like, hey, that's the title of the talk. And the main things he focuses on are like service mesh, observability, and security, which is also where we talk about Tetragon. So highly recommend this talk. Super, super recommended. And then we also have L3AF, which is a really interesting project. This is a project that came out of Walmart. And basically, L3AF is a lifecycle management tool for eBPF programs, basically giving users the ability to like take in the different eBPF programs that they want to run, add them to the kernel, or run them in the kernel at a certain a list. Or if you're like, hey, I don't need this eBPF program anymore, now I can rip it away like live. L3AF is a command, a control plane essentially for eBPF programs across a distributed system. It's really, really cool. Divine says, out here making notes on talks to catch up on. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm glad that we did this episode because it gave me a chance to like really key in on some talks that I might not have had the chance to. So I'm glad that you're getting the same out of this for sure. Moving on, we also have BPF Trace meets Pixie. This is a really fun tool. So this is Pixie is an observability tool using eBPF that doesn't leverage a CNI. So like you might consider Pixie and Hubble to be competitors in a way, but Hubble relies on Cilium as a CNI for observability and tracing and all that. Pixie uses BPF Trace and kind of modifies not modifies, but like captures the output of BPF Trace for observability purposes. So this is something I wanted to touch on where, this is not just I want to touch on some more eBPF powered like tooling that does some really, really cool things. I think that the mechanism of Pixie is fascinating, and it's cool to see what other people are doing in the community.
I would say that Pixie is actually more of an APM kind of focused solution, right? They're more trying to understand what's happening at the application here, regardless of what that thing is deployed on. And that's really kind of the primary focus of Pixie in general. What this talk was about was that they're taking, so there's already like a framework that allows for BPF trace inside of a lot of these environments. And what this talk was about was Pixie being extended to be able to support BPF trace, as well as what it was already doing, which is more like the APM focus, like any application anywhere, kind of giving you a way to instrument those applications, leveraging BPF and those sorts of things. Yeah. But this is just extending it now, because BPF trace has like all of these pre-built functions that allow you to kind of look at, to poke and explore different parts of the Linux system in general, right? And so this is more like just extending it to be able to support that functionality. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like if you don't know, BPF trace is like a tool that's used to like write eBPF programs. It's like a high level like language sort of thing. You can write eBPF scripts and run it through BPF trace, and it'll kick back the output to the terminal. Pixie takes those eBPF trace, the scripts that already exist in the community, and all those, and then absorbs the information from captures it from like the printf, and then puts it into a table format, which is an interesting way of doing it for sure. Yeah,
so you can like visualize and get a more kind of cohesive look at what the results are, right?
Yeah,
BPF trace is generally a pretty cool tool for like a single machine, for focusing on one particular part of one particular problem. And when coupled with Pixie, you end up in a situation where you could distribute that in such a way that you can kind of look at you could look at the result of that query against a distributed system.
Yes,
which is a whole different way of looking at the problem.
Yeah, and they actually talk about that in another talk that I'm going to be mentioning very shortly. Really quickly, also moving on, we have the cross-platform future of eBPF with Dave Toller. This is a gentleman from Microsoft who gave a really great talk on hey, does eBPF run in Windows? Yeah, it's already a cross-platform tool. Like it can run in Windows. He talks a little bit about the history of eBPF again and how it got to a place where it was cross-platform provided, right? Really cool. Duffy, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Dave's actually been on Echo Office Hours a few times as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he's a super sharp guy, and he's actually heading up. He's a big part of the effort at Microsoft to support eBPF on Windows. So yeah, I think this is in some ways you might consider if you think about Thomas's talk about the state of the art on eBPF. We've all talked about the fact that this whole eBPF ecosystem is changing so quickly. There's so many things happening that having Thomas's perspective on it is really valuable because he's actually keeping track of what's actually happening out there. Dave is that person around the Microsoft piece of it, right? So if you want to understand what Microsoft is doing with eBPF and where they are in that effort, keeping track of what Dave's out there talking about is going to be a great way to do that.
Yeah, for sure. This is a really cool talk. Really interesting to see where eBPF is going. You're saying how quickly it's changing and how the adoption is already being used by Windows, right? How quick is that?
Yeah.
And it's cool. And also one of the things he talked about too is that the eBPF for Windows, it's on eBPF on Windows. So the mechanism for eBPF in Windows isn't baked into the product itself. It's a tool that runs on top of it. So it can already support multiple versions of Windows. So if you're a Windows user, you're looking for eBPF for Windows already works for you. It's really, really cool. So highly recommend that talk for sure. And then for the final one for eBPF Day, which was really neat.
We actually we have a question too.
Yes.
And it's from David. Can any BPF tool trace a packet from end to end across different containers on different nodes?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. It depends on the program, whatever the script or the eBPF program is being run to what it's watching.
That's also Hubble. I mean, that's pretty much the design of Hubble, right? Being able to understand the life cycle of packets between things in a cluster. That's pretty much right in the target zone for that application. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, if you're interested in that sort of observability and tracing, Hubble is a great tool for that for sure. Highly recommended. It fits up that use case perfectly. Going back to eBPF Day, there was one last talk. It's a panel, which Duffy, you were on. It's the clustered panel eBPF edition, which is like breaking a cluster and fixing it again. This is one that I didn't really have a chance to watch all the way through, but another one that was plagued by Wi-Fi issues and sound issues, but was really fun to watch for sure. Any thoughts on the panel?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of clustered in general because I feel like it's so important that we generate a kind of a learning culture in any company, in any space. Like if you're not in a place where you can play with stuff and learn about it, then it's going to be really hard to find success at whatever that thing is. And I think that clustered really kind of helps normalize that learning culture, like helps get people into the mind space of, to learn something, you got to play with it. You got to, just like you would when you were a kid, you got to play with this stuff to become proficient at it. My big takeaway from this talk was I really enjoyed kind of exploring all the creative ways that the different people who participated went through and broke clusters for each other, and like the different tools that they used to try and solve these things, right? And I thought this was a really good kind of like hands-on overview of different tooling in the space that helps you kind of understand how to debug and how to troubleshoot and what sort of observability primitives are available to you when looking at some of the tooling that is available from these different participants. And I thought it was great.
Yeah. It's one that I'm definitely gonna like. Probably right after this, I'm gonna finish watching that video. Bill, did you have any thoughts on some of the things that we talked about for eBPF Day?
No, I missed eBPF Day because I was in Cloud Native Telco Day, so I missed most of these, unfortunately.
No, I see. I totally understand. There's just so much going on for sure. Cool. Yeah. And then I just have a couple more that I watched that I very much enjoyed. One of them, again, talking about Pixie, is reproducing production issues in your CI pipeline using eBPF with Matthew Larray and Omid Azizi. This is a really cool talk. This is a very interesting. Like prior to my joining Isovalent, I worked for a e-commerce site, and one of the big problems that we had was sometimes people testing in production, or like how do we like properly reproduce what production traffic looks like. And so this talk is about exactly that, leveraging eBPF tooling, particularly like Pixie, to capture traffic and then replay it for the use of testing during a PR. Like it's really, really cool. Highly recommend this talk if you are running applications in production and you want to get more testing. They talk about like I said, capturing the data and reusing it, but also automating the testing itself. Like they don't talk about like, here's how you write a unit test around eBPF. It's more like, hey, allow your tool to test itself with the production, right? So they just slam new PRs. They'll like build a new image based on a PR and then just run it through its paces with real production traffic. It's really, really cool. Big recommendation on that one. And then finally, we already talked about it a bit, but the guided tour of Cilium Service Mesh with Liz. Super recommend that talk. Go watch that talk. She's great. And then we have a link to the slides as well. So if you're, you want to go back and take a look at any of the slides, like you're like, oh, which one was that one? Here's a link to the slides and all the everything that was going on. That was, my major takeaway of like the content that was available at KubeCon. But I think there was a lot of stuff that happened at KubeCon as well. I think we might have some like funny stories. For one thing, you might be wondering about my shirt. I didn't get it at this KubeCon, but if you've never been to a KubeCon and you are interested in getting some like interesting swag, I got this for working at the Kubernetes release team, 114. This is my swag for that, and I got it at KubeCon. Like I had to like meet the guy who ran the release team to physically hand it to me. So if you work on the community and you're like interested in like getting like cool swag and also meeting people, like KubeCon is the best. And I think Duffy, Bill, what are some of the major takeaways that you guys had outside of just the talks? I heard there was a funny story about a hat.
Oh my gosh! So this hat, which I acquired in London when I was there before the whole pandemic thing, I was headed to the contributor summit to go and see so many of the people who contribute to Kubernetes for the first time, because so many of the people that I see frequently at these KubeCons have only been in the US. So I get to see the people who do travel to the US and also a bunch of the people who are here in the US already. And so I was really looking forward to the contributor summit because I could get to meet so many of the folks who are in Europe in general, and who are able to make it to a KubeCon in Europe, but don't come to the US for things. And that absolutely worked out. I got to meet a lot of the folks that I had not had a chance to meet in person previously. But on the way there, it was hot. I took my hat off and I put it on the back of the seat in front of me, and I left it there. Got out of that cab, was with me, and we were sharing the cab. I got out of that cab without my hat. I go inside and I like realize my hat's gone, and I look at Bill and he's like, oh. And fortunately Bill had his receipt. And so I took a picture of the receipt, and because the receipt had like the taxi number and the person's name and all this other stuff. And I tried while at that event to call, there's 8 different taxi companies in Valencia. There's no way I'm finding the one, because they don't actually put in the receipt like which company it is.
Right.
So I'm like, oh man, I'm never getting this hat back. It is what it is. I don't know what I'm going to do. Later that evening, I get a ride from another taxi back to the hotel. And that taxi driver was a great English speaker. And so he understood my problem. I showed him my receipt, or I showed him the picture of Bill's receipt. And he proceeded to write up a whole thing and send it out on like six or seven different WhatsApp channels, which are all taxi drivers in Valencia. Like basically sent out a message to the community of taxi drivers in Valencia describing me and my hat and the person's name and their license number. And the next morning I get a phone call from a Valencia number, and I call back, and it's a cab driver, but he doesn't understand me very well. He says, where do you want me to pick you up? And I said, the hotel I'm in. And he goes, when? How about now? And he shows up, and he thinks I'm just calling him for a ride. And so he shows up, and I'm like, you have my hat. And he goes, oh, I got my hat back. And it's another one of those power of community kind of scenarios. You know what I mean? Like if it weren't for that cabbie being willing to send out a message to the entire taxi community, I don't know that there's any way I would have seen my hat again.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm like, I've recently started wearing like a bag, and the number of places I leave bags, it's embarrassing. So I totally hear that where you're like,
yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah, there it went. Yep.
Yeah, but that's a really fun story. That's really cool. You got it back. The fact that he still had the hat in the car when you when he came and picked you up, that was really cool.
Yeah, he absolutely had it in the car, and then when he saw me, he knew who I was, I think. And then I was like, you have my hat? And he's like, yes. He was just as happy as I was, I'm sure he saw the hat after picking somebody else up and went, oh no.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. Watching all the pictures and things, like filling up my Twitter, I was embroiled in ungodly rage. My FOMO was off the charts. I
had the same in Barcelona the previous year. Before the pandemic, I was like, "Oh man, so many of my friends are in Barcelona. I love Barcelona, but I didn't get to go because I was in the middle of a bunch of other stuff at the time somewhere, And so, yeah,
I hear you, man. Yeah, so it was so cool, and also all the big old plates of paella that I saw. I've never had it. I gotta go.
You gotta go. Yeah.
So I was very, very jealous, but I thought that was just really cool. It's really cool to see people together again and see feel the energy kind of secondhand, for sure. I definitely got a lot out of it, even just seeing it on Twitter. It was really cool. So if you haven't been to a KubeCon, super go to a KubeCon. It is a lot of fun. Yes, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of things going on, but there's space for everybody in the community, space for everyone to see each other and to meet and talk about all the interesting things that you're working on. And we want to hear from you too, for sure. And everyone does. It's a really great scene.
Yeah, that is the most important part of this event pretty much every time I go, and that is the hallway track. It's your ability to come and meet people who are working on similar problems to you, or people who are working on problems that don't relate to what you're doing at all, right? But just having the ability to connect and talk about the space, talk about different technologies, talk about different experiences that people are having, and really kind of just get out of your own perspective and learn about the perspectives of others is just such a huge gift, And I think it's always been it's my takeaway every time, It's like being able to to share that experience with others is just a huge thing.
Yeah, for sure. Bill, how about you? Any extra stories? Any thoughts around KubeCon?
I mean, I feel like you guys have summed it up all already. Like, it was just good catching up with people. Yeah, and it's an exciting event. After 10 times going, this is probably my most exciting one yet. So it gets better and better. Yeah.
I mean, the location couldn't have been beat, right? It's Valencia, Spain. Yeah, super jealous I wasn't able to join you this time, but I'm planning to be there. Detroit, I'm coming for you.
Let's do it.
Detroit. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And as a Divine, you're next year, fingers crossed. Hope to see you there for sure. All right, I think that's all we have. That was our KubeCon wrap up. You have
a few hours left to submit those KubeCon Detroit talks.
That is true. Today is the deadline. If you have a CFP, you got to get it in.
Yeah. I was imagining what the graph might look like for submissions over time, and I imagine exactly.
They've released it before, and it's literally just like this, and then like the last day, it's just like this. They get like 1,000 submissions in the last day. So exactly. I can confirm I've seen the graphs.
Awesome. And also one more shout out, Rio, he's saying that KubeCon EU Amsterdam will be amazing. The Netherlands is great. I've not been. I look forward to the chance to be able to go for sure. I've always wanted to go to see Amsterdam, and KubeCon there is going to be great.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us on today's Echo. Bill, Duffy, thank you so much for joining me. This was a ton of fun. I got a lot out of it, and it was just a blast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Always a pleasure.
All right. Cheers, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.